This Week in Gaming with Naomi Kyle.
Hello everyone, I'm Naomi Kyle and welcome back to This Week in Gaming. This week we're catching up on the state of the next Call of Duty game, a cultural shift in video game preferences, the makers of Baldur's Gate 3 are in some hot water, and rumors of a beloved character returning to PlayStation. We've got all of that and more, so let's get started. The next game in the Call of Duty franchise has been heavily teased and rumored throughout the far reaches of the internet. Finally, in a post on Twitter, Activision Blizzard has officially confirmed that the next Call of Duty game will be a sequel to the ever-popular Black Ops saga. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 will be the game's official title, but there is still no word of what the game's setting will be. Fortunately for us, dedicated fans like Charlie Intel on Twitter have been doing some Black Ops of their own. After careful sleuthing online, Charlie believes that Black Ops 6 will take place during the U.S. Gulf War. Charlie has even posted a screenshot on Twitter to back their claims, where in the screenshot, the word Gulf can clearly be seen in the background image of the Black Ops 6 website. But the sleuthing doesn't stop there. Charlie has found an image of a GameStop monitor encouraging employees to offer pre-orders for Black Ops 6. In the image, it shows 3 options for pre-order: Xbox Series X, PS5, and PS4, but not Xbox One. If this image is to be believed, it means that there is a very real chance that 4 years into the 9th generation of gaming, the previous generation is still being supported by new AAA releases. We can, of course, expect to hear more official news about Black Ops 6 during the Xbox Showcase on June 9th at 10 a.m. Pacific Time. And if for some reason you missed the event, fear not, I've got you covered. We will cover all of the gaming news and reveals during the showcase when episode 18 of This Week in Gaming airs the next day at 9 p.m. Pacific Time. Quantic Foundry, a market research company dedicated to understanding what motivates gamers, has come across a shocking discovery. Gamers are becoming less interested in strategic thinking and planning. Now, this doesn't suggest that gamers prefer a mindless experience. It just means that our tastes as a community are changing. This study shows that gamers today prefer games that promote reactive gameplay or games where you can just turn off your brain and relax, commonly referred to as cozy games. The long-term study conducted by Quantic Foundry has measured the motivations of gamers over a span of 9 years, and across the 12 motivations, of all the motivations measured, they found that all motivations remained relatively unchanged since 2015, with the exception of one. The motivation for strategy when gaming had declined by a staggering 67%. But some of the greatest games ever made are strategy games. So why the steep decline? Quantic Foundry has a couple of theories. The downward trend may be related to our current media consumption habits, where we prefer shorter experiences to longer ones. Or we may simply be so worn out by our day-to-day functions that we don't have the mental bandwidth for complex thinking. And I think for the most part, I agree. I still love a good strategy game like Civilization or XCOM, but sometimes there is nothing I'd rather do than tune out and rearrange my farm layout in Stardew Valley. But what do you think? Are you a diehard strategy gamer, or have your tastes changed too? We'd love to hear what you think, and don't forget to tag me at Naomi Kyle on social. In an interview with Sony, Naughty Dog studio head Neil Druckmann, known for his work on The Last of Us games, was asked to share a personal vision or dream project that he hopes to see realized in the future. He expressed how proud he was that The Last of Us TV series has been bridging the gap between gamers and non-gamers. But this next bit is what caught everyone's attention this week and made him the subject of quite a bit of backlash. He went on to say in the interview that the current game that Naughty Dog is working on has the potential to redefine mainstream perceptions of gaming. The last time someone said a game was going to be this groundbreaking, we got the quadruple A title Skull and Bones, which Ubisoft expected to make a huge splash but turned out to be more of a flop. So, is this new game from Naughty Dog going to be as good as Neil Druckmann says, or is he just blowing smoke? Well, it turns out Neil Druckmann was misquoted. Shortly after the interview started making waves, Neil jumped on Twitter to clear the air, saying, "This is not quite what I said. In editing my rambling answers in my recent interview with Sony, some of my words, context, and intent were unfortunately lost. While I can't read you the transcript in its entirety, I can sum it up." Neil said that the new game that Naughty Dog is working on is something very fresh and the most excited he has been yet. So yeah, it doesn't quite have the same ring to it as redefining mainstream perceptions of gaming, but if Neil says he's excited, then I'm excited. If you want to check out the full transcript of the interview for yourself, you can visit his profile on Twitter and give him a follow if you'd like at Neil_Druckmann. If you forgot a new Street Fighter movie was happening, don't worry, you're not alone, and consider this your official reminder. That's right, Legendary is currently working on a Street Fighter movie, and last week they released the film's logo, and it looks like exactly what you'd expect from Street Fighter. Last year, Legendary Entertainment announced they were working on a Street Fighter movie, which wasn't too surprising given Legendary also produced the highly successful Detective Pikachu movie back in 2019. This is the first we've heard since they made that announcement, and we'll keep you posted as more teasers roll in. For now, we have a logo, and we do know that the project is being helmed by Australian twin filmmakers Danny and Michael Filippo, who are best known for their 2022 supernatural horror film Talk to Me, which did very well at the box office. We haven't had a Street Fighter movie since 1994's adaptation starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. And I must admit, I secretly hope for a Jean-Claude cameo in this one. Just putting it out there. I have the burden of sharing some unfortunate news for our North American listeners. Baldur's Gate 3 PS5 physical editions are once again being delayed. Larian Studios broke the news on Twitter saying, due to production changes outside of our control, approval for particular regions has taken much longer than expected. We expect all PS5 North American copies to be ready in around 14 days, followed by another 10 days to begin delivering these directly to players. It seems like this setback is currently just affecting the PS5 physical copies, as it seems to have something to do with the production of the PS5 discs. The team, however, was able to confirm that Xbox copies of Baldur's Gate 3 are currently shipping. This is not the best news, I know, but it is reassuring to know that good guy Larian is being super transparent with what is going on, and that they're doing everything within their power to solve this issue. For those familiar with the cute white robot with glowing blue eyes from the PlayStation game Astro Bot Rescue Mission, listen up. A new Astro Bot title could be unveiled in the next 2 weeks. This is all according to leaker and journalist Bill Kun, who for expediency's sake we'll call Bill. And as it turns out, Bill might actually be onto something. He has maintained a pretty good track record when it comes to leaks, and he even has receipts to back up his claims. One of these pieces of evidence is a promotional image Bill found for Days of Play 2024, PlayStation's annual sales event. The image sports a new Days of Play logo, and Astro Bot predominantly featured across the image. At this time of this recording, PlayStation has not officially announced when Days of Play will be. However, Jeff Grubb, journalist at Giant Bomb and no stranger to leaks himself, has said that we can expect a PlayStation event held in May of this year. My guess is we'll get a reveal of the new Astro Bot game during Summer Game Fest, which is just, 2 weeks away. Of course, whatever happens, whether my guess is correct or not, you can count on me to report on it right here. Now it's time to go over the games releasing this week. On May 27th, the roguelike 2D action platformer The Rogue Prince of Persia jumps into early access exclusively on PC through Steam. On May 28th, the platform fighter starring Warner Brothers characters Multiverses snatches on PS4, PS5, PC, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S. Then on May 29th, Capes, the hero turn-based strategy game, soars onto all platforms. The hand-drawn action platformer Nine Souls launches exclusively on PC. Then on May 30th, retro fantasy RPG Scald Against the Black Priory launches exclusively on PC. The feline 2D side-scroller Umbra Claw claws its way onto all platforms. On May 31st, F124 accelerates onto PS4, PS5, PC, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S. Then prepare yourself for a double dose of retro gaming goodness when the high-octane boomer shooter Celico and the legally distinct, if you know, Nightmare Cart launches exclusively on PC. Coming to Game Pass this week is Moving Out 2, which comes out on May 28th. Then Humanity and Lords of the Fallen come out on May 30th. And lastly, Farming Simulator 22 is free to download on the Epic Games Store from now until May 30th. So that's the news this week. It's now time to chat with our guest today, Leah Jewer, who joins us to chat about changing perceptions and the ever-growing mainstream acceptance of gaming. Hey, Leah, so good to have you on the show.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. It's so cool to have you on the show because we work on the show together. We're kind of
That we do.
Yeah, we're partner in arms. We're doing cool things. We have 50 episodes. We're about 15 episodes. I think this is episode 16 in. So I wanted to talk to you and have you on the show because I think you come from a different perspective too. You work in more like mainstream and the kind of the intersection between mainstream gaming, and there's been a couple stories this week that are about that. So I want to start off with the TV shows that we've seen lately, the success of kind of gaming IPs being converted into more mainstream mediums like movies and TV shows. Why do you think we're still seeing a bit of a struggle for gaming to really break through and truly be considered mainstream?
I think it's a bit of a generational thing that we're getting there, right? We need to have some wins, which we started to get. And now we just need it to open up. As well, the wins that we have gotten have been, I guess, what you would call the stereotypical type of games, like shooters, horrors that have been turned into, different entities. And gaming has a much wider breadth of stories and gaming types and things like that hopefully these ones that we've seen as wins will help get people into the industry and wanting to explore more about how these stories are created. But, there's obviously still a little bit of that gap. So now it's just like, what's the next thing that we can have that could branch it? The Mario movie did great strides, but it's still stereotypical. That's what people think when they think video games, right? So
that's true.
Now how do we get them into the next bit, right? And I think it's just time.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of stories to pull from already. And still, I was looking back at all the movies and TV shows we have had done, and there was a lot there, some that I didn't even think would happen, like Assassin's Creed movie, like, Tomb Raider. So those things I think have definitely come into a more mainstream space, but you kind of work between both worlds, the gaming world and the mainstream world. So what has been the biggest challenge, in your opinion, that trying to reach wider audiences, whether that be for gaming or just the mainstream media, what has been the challenge that you've seen the most?
I think it's approachability, and then just people just be unaware of what's available out there, because we hear of the same game types all the time in the mainstream. The big things are the Fortnites and the Call of Duties and Halos and things like that. Minecraft, but even at least Minecraft is like down an avenue that is more on the creative, safer kind of space, right? More child oriented. I love Minecraft. Hardcore
me too.
Minecraft player. Cannot wait for the new update to come out, which hopefully will be very soon. So yeah, I think it's just get people getting used to and realizing that this is another avenue of entertainment that can be breached into. It does have a little bit of a monetary, side. We're lucky that mobile has gotten so good, and now with streaming games and stuff like that. But like, it is kind of an expensive pastime to get into. But with streaming services now in the gaming space and things getting lower, hopefully lower in price, that'll make the approachability easier. And it's just so easy to turn on your TV and find something rather than going and setting up a console if you're not used to doing that.
That's right.
Jumping in from there. And then, the control mechanisms too. People have to get used to using dual sticks and things like that. And for our generation, we grew up on that. So it's going to be much more in the norm for us. And as we go through, it'll become like commonplace. While older generations, not so much.
That's right. So it's just a generational shift on top of the accessibility, like the fact that certain things about gaming are just not for your average person, somebody who perhaps didn't grow up with it. Neil Druckmann was quoted this week. There was a big story that came out where he said that Naughty Dog's next game could redefine mainstream perceptions of gaming. Now, not to get into like the discussion about what he said and some folks who were upset about that approach or his opinion about the next game that he's working on. But in a general sense, just looking at the quote itself, what do you think he meant by that? And then what do you think is the way to redefine mainstream perceptions about gaming? Is there even a way?
Yeah, it's interesting too, because of the context and how that was like it came out in that PlayStation blog post first, and it was kind of spun what his actual quote was.
Right.
A little bit of context lost. But I think what they're trying to say here is that like they made great strides in having The Last of Us turn into this TV show, and now we're getting season 2 and season 3, and even just hearing the buzz around The Office now. Within Bell Media, we own the rights to HBO in Canada. So, it is part of our promo cycle and things like that. But hearing people that I would have never thought of before saying like, oh my God, Last of Us is really cool and a really great story. And I'm like, yeah, and the game is even better. Like you're only getting a smidgen of it because you're taking, like a 20-hour experience and cutting it down into and making it work for a 8-10 hour experience. Like that's a lot of missing story, and also you putting yourself in that place, actively working to get through the game versus watching it passively is a very different experience. But having all these folks around talking about this and then coming to me being like, you played Last of Us, what do you think of it? And that that's a new experience that I'm happy that I can finally pass on some of that knowledge and say, hey, you should go play the game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been around for a long time. This game is so big in the gaming world, but it's also, I'm just glad that it's kind of broken through. And maybe it with the Fallout TV show success and The Last of Us, people have watched the show and now they're like, okay, maybe I will try the game because I want to experience more of this world. It has, I think, opened up the doors for people to maybe be a bit more warmed up to the idea of potentially picking up a controller and playing the game itself. Now, since you started in the industry, you've been in the industry for a long time, like myself, probably longer than me, actually. But how have you seen the content around games, just gaming content in general, changed over the years? Like, what has been the biggest shift that you've seen?
I think it's how prolific it is into everyday life that's really changed things. The fact that we've got YouTube live streams, Twitch live streams, all that kind of stuff. You can kind of jump into it from any point in the day and become consumed by it. I did a few years back when I was in Montreal, my co-founder of Girls on Games, Catherine, and I did a special evening session called Gaming by the Light of the Moon. They used to do these sessions called Full Moon Fever, when we would, cover a topic. We went through and covered all of these songs that have been used in games. So everything from trailers to soundtracks to, pieces that were made for a game, like all this kind of stuff. And the fact that we built a really, really dynamic, interesting radio show out of all of this content of music that has been focused in games is, fantastic. It's not just the 8-bit tunes and things like that, right, anymore. And also seeing, as working with iHeartRadio, the fact that now we're getting new music that is featured in games. Like we're getting Imagine Dragons songs that are in all these different games, or like in it, and it's just wild to be like, oh yeah, I know that song because that's actually come up in my Twitter feed because it's part of this game, and now we're adding it to new music, and that's wild. So like having those kind of like connection points where my passions projects now meet my work projects is pretty awesome. So I'm glad there's finally that crossover that's becoming more mainstream than ever before.
Yeah, it's just been really cool to see. And for my end as well, like you said, there's different angles that it comes at, and it kind of evolves and changes. So I'm also curious about your particular business. What you do is very much at that pinnacle, at that intersection. What are some tricks of the trade? Like what are some things that you've learned on how to reach wider audiences? You've seen, you talked about your show and everything, but is there anything else that you could impart to folks like myself trying to reach wider audiences and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think it's being open and inclusive is definitely key. Like there's so many different types of video games out there and styles and what people are interested in that, we're, especially for what we do at Girls on Games, we make sure that like gaming is for everybody. Doesn't matter what type of games you play, come hang out and talk with us. So I think that's key. And then just being out there and conversing with the community and being, open to new ideas and trying new things. And yeah, I think that's really like the key point on our end, because you never know what type of environment someone's coming from, what their interests are, or anything like that, but you may learn something new. I love this diversity of stories that we're getting now. The games that I've been playing are all over the map, all these different stories from all different walks of life. And I think that has, and being open to that has been a really key point in my growth as a gamer and content creator.
Yeah, and you're also seeing, the genres too. Like people are into cozy games, or people are into. It's like these might not be genres that everyone is open to, but like to speak to somebody who's really immersed in that, I find it very interesting. And I agree with you that it's just about being open to the community and speaking with them, and yeah, just learning from other people. it's just how we evolve as an industry. Quickly, I want to touch on what you're playing right now. Is there anything fun that you're super obsessed with?
Yeah, I'm actually playing this game called Haunty. I'm playing it on Switch, but it's available on PlayStation and Xbox via Game Pass, and you can buy it too there. It's an action-adventure game in the world of ghosts.
Oh.
You play as this little ghost character who we don't know too much about him. We're trying to discover his past life because he meets up with his angel character that tries to help them ascend, but the chains are holding you down and pull you back down. And I guess as to what is, you know, hell or like the underworld, and you're trying to find your way through to ascend. And the style is really interesting because it's like this black and white hand-drawn art style, and the music is phenomenal, and I'm really digging it.
Oh man, I need to check that out. I've been looking for something good to play on the Switch actually too, and that's totally up my alley. Thank you so much for being on my show, Leah. Obviously, very much appreciate and love working with you. It's been so fun putting the show together with you. So thanks for finally being on the show. I think it's great for people to get to know you who listen to the show, but also they should tune into your podcast, Girls on Games, where you also cover the same kind of stuff. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Leah Jewer is co-founder of the Girls on Games podcast and senior content manager at iHeartRadio Canada. You can follow her on Twitter at Leah Jewer. And that's This Week in Gaming. I'm your host, Naomi Kyle. I had such a great time this week bringing you all the latest in games. Thank you so much for listening. Your listen does make a huge difference. Don't forget to let me know what you're playing and what you think of these stories by tagging me at Naomi Kyle on social. From all of us here at This Week in Gaming, we wish you a gaming-filled week, and we'll see you again same time, same place. Talk to you later.
This Week in Gaming is an iHeartRadio Canada podcast. Subscribe to this podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts. Download the iHeartRadio app for more podcasts just like these.